6 games to preview today and looking back at Thursday Night Football as we welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Dave Richard is here. I'm Adam Azer. Jamie Eisenberg will be joining us shortly. Dave, here are some stats to know. Give me a sound effect to convey your enthusiasm or whatever feeling you're feeling about these stats. Here we go. In their last 4 games, the Cowboys are allowing 10.3 passing yards per attempt. That is by far the worst in the NFL. And the difference between Dallas and the second worst team is the same as the difference between the second worst team and the 19th worst team. That's how much worse they are than everyone else.
And you want a sound for that?
Ooh. Okay. Next stat. In their this one blows my mind. In their last 3 games since Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua returned, the Rams have only one play of longer than 30 or more yards, and it was the overtime touchdown by Demarcus Robinson. They've been one of the least explosive teams in the NFL since the return of their 2 receivers, and Kyren Williams has gone 2 straight games without a carry of even 10 yards. Okay. Jamie's here, Dave. Sound effect? Jamie, Nick Chubb has averaged 3.3 or fewer yards per carry for 3 straight games for the first time in his career. Oh, how about that?
He should retire.
He should retire. Here come the Saints. They allow 5.2 yards per carry.
Let's go.
Final stat before we get into last night's game. Saquon Barkley was outscoring both of those guys combined. Jaden Daniels, both of those guys, who am I talking about? Both quarterbacks combined. He was outscoring them combined until the 2-point conversion at the very end there. So let's get into Philadelphia and Washington. Yeah, this is kind of a disappointment other than Saquon Barkley. Brian Robinson was good as well.
Zach Ertz.
Oh, yeah, Zach Ertz. Yeah, that was a heck of a 2-point conversion catch.
Yeah.
All right.
Earned those fantasy points in the last minute of the game.
Yeah, but you know what? Great defense. It wasn't like a sloppy game. It wasn't turnover. It wasn't like they were turning the ball over. Just two teams playing good defense. Jamie, takeaways from this one?
I mean, Saquon was amazing. Sorry, Giants fans.
Happy for him.
It was a good game for Jalen Hurts. Not a great game for Jalen Hurts. We obviously have a Devontae Smith issue. It would have been nice if he had broken that catch over the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Was really his only chance, I think. I thought Dallas Goedert looked good. Dave mentioned Zach Ertz. I thought he had a chance to play well. Just revenge game narrative, all that stuff. Terrible for Terry McLaurin. My gosh, I feel bad for anybody that started him.
I.e., everybody.
Just the lack of even attempt to try and get him going was just ridiculous. Like, what? Why not? Why? Eckler was great. Robinson, like you said, scored a touchdown. So for people that started him, I think the thing that you look at with this Washington offense moving forward is, and we touched on this on Beyond the Box Score yesterday, is Cliff Kingsbury. You go back to his days in college, you go back to his time in Arizona.
Yes.
And it's starting to play itself out now.
Yeah.
He gets figured out a little bit.
Yes.
And, his team's sort of limp to the finish line. And I hope that that's not going to happen with Jaden Daniels, and he's not going to hit a little bit of a rookie wall on top of it. So there's a little bit of a mini bye, with the Thursday night game. Go back to the drawing board a little bit, hit the reset button, get him a little bit more comfortable. I don't know how healthy he is, with Daniels also with the rib injury. They mentioned on the broadcast last night, you saw him still getting attention there. Hurt his finger in the game too. So, is he going to deliver fantasy championships? I hope so, but you got to maybe make some backup plans just in case.
I would argue that if this were his first game, none of us would be surprised because he looked like a rookie. The problem is that this isn't his first game, and we've seen him look like a veteran before. So it kind of feels like he's taking a step back overall, and maybe that's in conjunction with the rib injury. He says that it's not, but I thought that he missed open receivers. I thought he had some off-target throws. I think his offensive line ended up being a pretty big liability, but I think the Eagles are going to make every offensive line look like a pretty big liability. The 4th down play, that was a botched snap. He said it was on because of his cadence.
It was a bad play call.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that they went for it. I think it was the right thing.
No, I agree.
But I don't think it was meant to be a run. I think it was meant to be something else.
No, it was meant to be a run.
I don't know, man. The snap was botched. Kind of felt like
No, he was going that way the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, but the snap fumbling the snap threw off the timing of the entire play, and certainly could have made the case. You kick the field goal there, you take the lead.
Yeah,
but especially when their kicker was struggling the way he was.
Sure,
with the Eagles kicker. But
yeah, the Eagles kicker, Jake Elliott was struggling, but I felt like their offense was rolling at that point, and so the Commanders knew that a 1-point win was pretty unlikely, I would imagine, and that's why they went for it. But he looked like a rookie more than anything else. He kind of reminded me at times of Caleb Williams in Chicago. He would hold the ball on occasion too long, off target a little too long.
Looked like a rookie.
Yeah.
Well, he's gone now. Now, Jaden Daniels has now gone 7 straight games without a rushing touchdown. He is very unselfish near the goal line. He continually gives it to his running backs, and they keep scoring. So I'm not going to criticize him for that, but it's hurting his fantasy value because it was 3 times in week 10 and 1 time yesterday where he easily could have kept it and maybe scored, but instead he gave it to his running back. If not for the Hail Mary, he would have scored 18 or fewer fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. But those 3 bad games are Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia. And those are really good defenses, right? So he's got, better matchups coming up. Dallas, Tennessee, at New Orleans, Philadelphia, again, that's unfortunate, and Atlanta in week 17. So I don't know, maybe, Philadelphia, obviously concerned about that. But what I found, but anyway, the schedule gets better. What I found interesting was that he was only started in 72% of leagues. So fantasy managers are concerned about Jaden Daniels. I gave some bad Jaden Daniels advice this week. I'm sorry. People said, well, I don't know yet, but should I start this guy over Jaden Daniels? I basically said, no, just keep starting Jaden Daniels. I thought he'd be better, and he wasn't. And honestly,
we all said the same. We all ranked it the same. So
yeah.
It's not like,
we all had him top 6.
It's not like you were alone on that. I got a phone call yesterday before the game started. Hey, Jared Goff or Jaden Daniels. I was like, wouldn't surprise me if Goff's better. I don't have them ranked that far apart, but last thing you want to do is watch that game Thursday night and Jaden Daniels goes nuts and you're going to regret it. So he's always got that type of upside, but still.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, Jamie, and I'm putting myself on the spot too, because I'll answer this. Detroit plays at Indy next week. Washington's got Dallas. Who are you starting next week?
Jaden Daniels without a second thought.
Right. Because it's Dallas. It's the matchup. So I'm willing to say the exact same thing. So I wouldn't panic. I would not panic at all. Maybe there's even a last minute buy low opportunity before the trade deadline passes in your fantasy leagues to get him.
Okay.
And it's there for Terry McLaurin too. Early on in the game, I don't know why, and this is kind of like a Cliff Kingsbury thing too. I don't know why they had McLaurin line up on the left side as much as they did. Mitchell did not shadow him, but he lined up against him every time he lined up wide, and Mitchell was sticking to him. It was really impressive. As soon as they started moving McLaurin around, he started to get open more often, but Daniels wasn't throwing to him. It was definitely weird. Daniels lamented that after the game. I would imagine there will be a massive bounce back for McLaurin against Dallas.
All right, but again, I said, if they do it to Terry McLaurin, I think we have to consider the Eagles now one of the toughest, if not the toughest, other than Surtain maybe, if not the toughest matchup for wide receivers. They are no joke.
For everything.
Yes, for everything. They are. Well, the run defense isn't great, but they are a great defense now, and their pass rush is ferocious. Their pass rush stunk before the bye.
Was awesome.
Now they're all over everyone. Okay. Sunday, you know what to do. You can either go to youtube.com/fantasyfootball today at 11:30 a.m. Eastern until kickoff, and we're answering your questions there. It's just a Q&A for an hour and a half. youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Or check out CBS Sports HQ on the CBS Sports app, and that's from 10 a.m. until kickoff. So that's not just fantasy, but a lot of fantasy talk there, just football talk. That's a great way to get ready for the games as well. And if you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, do that and use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up and use the bonus code FANTASY. Very easy. I've done it. You can do it. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. We'll take a quick break. We'll get you your news and notes and update on the Steelers running back situation there, where they flipped who's not practicing, and more after this on Fantasy Football Today.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, news and notes. Sam Darnold practiced in full. He had a hand injury that limited him on Wednesday, but he practiced in full on Thursday. Now it's C.J. Stroud's turn to be limited with a hand injury, so his first practice of the week limited. I don't think it's going to affect anything in the rankings, and hopefully he'll be fine on Friday. Running back news. Jaylen Warren missed practice, and Najee Harris practiced in full. So Harris was someone, Jamie, that we were saying yesterday, sit if you can. If Warren is out, how does that change things for Harris against the Ravens?
He's never two running back. You know, I mean, we saw what he was capable of doing when Warren was missing time earlier this year. So he'll be more involved in the passing game. Patterson will clearly, have a bigger role as well, Cordero Patterson. But I think for Najee's opportunity, it changes dramatically if Warren's not there.
Could end up picking up some extra targets, don't you think?
Yeah.
That would Chase Brown had against Baltimore a week ago.
That's true. Yeah, Warren's been getting about 3 targets per game, but the Ravens are different. They like running backs get a ton of targets against them.
You gotta get the ball out.
Yeah. Mike McCarthy wants to get Rico Dowdle the ball more. So Dowdle or Najee Harris in either scenario of Warren being in or out.
I would take Najee over both. It's still a bad matchup against Houston. So both bad matchups. You have a better offense for Pittsburgh right now.
If Warren is in, I will take Dowdle over Najee in PPR.
Okay. Oh, I saw Jamie retweet this with a image of a bus. But Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, Dave, he was very excited about Gus Edwards. He said he's healthier now.
He looked it.
Dealing with some stuff in the offseason that I guess is like finally behind him. And Greg Roman's very excited for Gus Edwards down the stretch.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about him. He's on the injury report with an ankle. He's been limited the past couple of days, but
it's the game of the week, yeah!
Yeah!
Chargers and the Bengals. A lot of good games this week. But this is the game of the week. Hey!
I do worry just a little bit about the Chargers slowing down Cincinnati. But if T. Higgins is back, that makes me feel a little bit better about the Bengals' chances to make this game high scoring. So I'm with you on this one. This was a good call. And Gus is still not somebody that I'm ready to start. And I'm not ready to sit J.K. Dobbins either, just because Gus came back last week.
I need to be 100% honest with you. I don't really feel commitment and conviction with this game of the week call.
Oh my gosh.
I felt like it was the best chance for me to surprise you. I don't really believe it's the game of the week. I'm not sure which game. Like, I don't want to go
Chiefs. Hell, what are you doing?
I was going to say Ravens. I'm sorry. I was going to say Eagles Commanders, to be quite honest with you. Like that.
You should have done this on Wednesday.
I should have. I forgot.
Oh,
not Chiefs Bills
away at the bit. Eventually it's not going to be good anymore.
Like the Chiefs are kind of boring.
No, I'm sorry. The Chargers just so full.
Yeah, I know. All right. Yeah.
It could be exciting though, James. They've got components on offense that could be really fun.
I mean, so do the Chiefs.
Steelers Ravens, I think, is definitely up there. I could have done it during the whole Najee Harris.
Yeah, but do you think Steelers Ravens will be like crazy high scoring? I guess it's got
it doesn't have to be the game of the week, I guess. It just has to be like a really good, fun game.
Yeah, okay. So I think all three of these games are going to be
Chiefs that never play any fun games.
No.
The Chiefs are boring. I don't know. All right.
I think you picked the right one as far as could be a fun game and could be high scoring. I'm hoping that T. Higgins makes it. I hope he plays, and then I hope he makes a huge difference.
Marshawn Lloyd is back in the fold for the Packers. Don't know if he'll play this week, but he's been limited at practice. Josh Jacobs also limited. Aaron Jones was limited. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I didn't see Aaron Jones. He didn't practice in full, did he? Limited again?
Limited on Thursday.
Okay. Isaiah Pacheco still unlikely to play this week.
Nope, but he's been limited too.
Yeah, and Tank Bigsby missed practice again. So as of now, if you have Travis Etienne, congratulations. There's a terrible matchup, but you might actually get 12 carries out of him. Darnell Mooney was limited with an Achilles injury. That's a new injury, but he was limited, so that's good. Amari Cooper is optimistic about playing this week. Remember, we have the mailbag at 2:30 p.m. Eastern today. Me and Jamie, no Dan today, but we'll update you on all the latest injury news. Michael Pittman practicing in full. Nico Collins limited. T. Higgins limited again. I'm feeling optimistic about T. Higgins. I'm just going to put that out there. Let's see. Cedric Wilson Jr. was limited for the Saints. Jonathan Mingo is expected to make his Cowboys debut today or this week.
Well, that'll solve things.
Yeah. DK Metcalf practiced in full. And Tyreek Hill said that wrist surgery is an option, but he won't do it until after the season. He wants to be out there. He wants to play. You're the Tyreek manager. You just need to hope that the Dolphins stay in playoff contention.
You know how Mingo could make a huge impact? He can grab the drapes real firmly and just run as fast as he can to the other side of the window to get the sun from coming into the stadium.
All right. And tight end news. Jake Ferguson missed practice with an illness. Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta still missing practice. So as of now, we're not expecting them. Are you guys ranking George Kittle? You are, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Isaiah likely practiced in full, so it looks like he'll be back. Hunter Henry, I think he'll be okay for this game. And offensive line injuries that might matter. It's not going to change anything for Detroit. So Taylor Decker, hopefully he can play, but you're starting all those guys. Spencer Brown, right tackle for the Bills. He keeps missing practice. I think he may have been limited yesterday.
I'll double check it. Kittle was limited yesterday.
Okay, good.
I'll get you your Bills report.
All right, Spencer Brown. The Jets and the Colts, that game, I think both teams are going to be without their starting left tackle.
No practice for Spencer Brown.
Okay. And Abe Lucas can be back. Yeah, that I said, yeah. Abe Lucas could be back for the Seahawks, which would be nice. And Cincinnati left tackle Orlando Brown was limited. On defense, well, Harrison Butker, if you have him on your roster, he's going to likely headed to IR, so get another kicker.
Spencer Schrader is going to be the guy replacing him in Kansas City.
Okay. And Kyle Hamilton, safety for the Ravens. Nice to see him get a limited practice in. And I'm pretty much going to stop there. Although it looks, DeForest Buckner for the Colts, he practiced in full. Oh, one other thing.
Always hating on the Packers.
They're healthy. They're healthy. I don't have to say anything. 3 Falcons cornerbacks are injured. 2 of them are regular players. One of them is a special teams guy, but maybe a backup. I don't know. But if the matchup is getting even better, potentially, I don't know if these guys are going to play. But 3 Falcons cornerbacks missing practice on Thursday. And Bo Nix, hooray. One question for each game. Green Bay is at Chicago. We know about the Bears defense, how good they've been against the pass. Are Jordan Love and Jaden Reed easy starts this week?
No.
Love is. Reed's recent track record makes me nervous to call him anything more than a flex.
Love is a low-end number 1 quarterback, and Reed is a low-end number 2, high-end number 3 receiver.
Okay. Would you start? Who was the guy? Oh, Jared Goff was the one that you were asked about last night. Jared Goff or Jordan Love?
Jared Goff.
I think I have Goff one spot ahead of Love.
Nick's over Love. Wilson over Love. Both those guys higher ceiling this week.
I'll take Love over Russ and Bo.
Knicks. Surprised Dave didn't talk trash about that stupid Bulls-Knicks game the other night. Heartbreaker. Absolute heartbreaker.
I don't know if I can name 5 players on the Bulls.
They got lucky, the bailout call. What was I going to say about Jaden Reed? I have him figured out. If he doesn't make a big play, he's not going to have a good game. But every time he's had a good game, he's made a huge play. Cleveland at the New Orleans Saints. Cedric Tillman or Nick Chubb? Who's a better flex?
What's the format?
There you go.
Half PPR.
Chubb.
I'll side with Tillman in half PPR.
Are you going to be pretty worried about Chubb if he doesn't come through in this game? Like going forward, like basically
yes.
This is Joe
I'm
Boone.
already still a little bit worried about Chubb. I mean, we're kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt of just magically being more explosive after a week off.
He's going to get a lot of work against a bad run defense. I'm not worried.
Well, you're not worried, but you have him ranked.
I think that's where we start is he scores. Does he get – there's been like 8 running backs with at least 14 carries. I think that's what the set is, Jamie. Maybe you can jog my memory on that one. But 8 running backs against the Saints with at least 14 carries. They've all scored, and 6 of them had 80 rushing yards.
Wow.
I think Chubb is going to score. I worry about just how many rushing yards he's going to get, and I'd be surprised if he caught a pass.
Jacksonville at Detroit, Brian Thomas Jr. or Jamison Williams?
I'm making that decision in a few leagues, and I'm starting Jameson Williams.
Wow. But I get it.
They get the same amount of targets at this point.
I know. Okay, Dave, you're Brian
I have
Thomas Jr.
BTJ higher.
All right. Seattle at San Francisco, Jackson Smith and Jigba or Jawan Jennings?
Jennings. Love Jennings.
Agreed. Yeah, me too.
Seattle's been horrible against wide receivers. Rams are at New England. Start or sit Ramondre Stevenson?
Low-end starter ahead of Najee. I like him better than James Cook this week. I like him better than J.K. Dobbins this week.
Ooh. He's behind the guys for me, but still a low-end number 2 running back. In full PPR, I've got him a notch ahead of Chubb. I think he can score too.
So here's the fool you stat of the game for Rams Patriots. Here's the start percentage in the last 3 games now for Ramondre Stevenson. 39% in week 8, 62% in week 9. He scored 22.4 or more fantasy points in both games. 71% last week, and he scored 8.7 fantasy points. So, you could argue in week 9, he was started in 62% of leagues that came through, but he's been frustrating fantasy managers. And I just wonder, Ramondre Stevenson is averaging 2.7 yards per carry since returning from his foot injury. So that's making me a little bit nervous. And the Rams run defense has actually been pretty good lately. I'm actually starting him at Superflex in one league because I have no choice. But I'm nervous about him. He's not running well. And just look what they did to Achane last week. They've been a lot better defensively. So I just want to throw that out there on Ramondre. It's not a great setup right now.
No, but it's the setup that you've talked about whenever they're going to be in competitive games, and I think they're going to stay close with the Rams.
Yes, and he did have like 20 carries last week, so you'll take that workload. All right, Houston at Dallas. Start CeeDee Lamb, or will he be bad? Thank you for laughing. Not the first time I've used that joke, but first time.
I have him ranked as wide receiver 20 in full PPR. He'll move up 1 spot if Mooney ends up being ruled out, but I'm hoping that he gets good volume again. I'm worried that there'll be too many targets that'll be short, and he'll just get tackled. So I'll have a bunch of 6-yard catches. You got to hope he scores, and you got to hope that he catches 8 to 10 targets.
Jacoby Myers over Lamb, Cortland Sutton over Lamb, Calvin Ridley over Lamb.
Yep.
John Jennings over Lamb, Cedric Tillman over Lamb.
You had me until you got to Jennings and Tillman, but they're back to back in my rankings.
Okay. Since Houston-Dallas is the last game we'll talk about, I will ask you this bonus question.
Ooh.
Tank Dell or Rico Dowdle?
Tank Dell.
More upside.
And this is all assuming Nico's playing, right?
With or without.
Okay. Did you know that With or Without You is one of my 3 favorite songs ever by U2? Didn't know that, did you? Now you do. Green Bay's at Chicago. Stat of the game. See if Dave knows this one. The name Chicago was first recorded in 1688, where it appears as Chicago, an Algonquin word meaning onion field.
Everybody knew that.
Did you know that you're from Onion Field? You're from a suburb of Onion Field?
I'm from the Onion Field suburbs. Did you know that the nickname Windy City wasn't given to Chicago because of the wind in Chicago?
No.
Rather because of the blustery nature of politicians in Chicago.
Really?
Like turn of the century, times. Yes.
I think I'm satisfied with the way we've covered this game. That's all we really need to know about this game. So let's move on. All right. So Jordan Love, a low-end starter, as you guys already said. The Bears allow the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Maybe after that, I haven't looked at his schedule, but maybe after this, you can, if he struggles again, throw out a buy low, because the perception might be pretty bad of Jordan Love, but he was rolling before leaving the Jacksonville game with an injury and playing that bad weather game against Detroit.
After Chicago, it's San Francisco at home, Miami at home on Thanksgiving, at Detroit.
Yeah, I'm in for that, I guess. Those aren't great matchups, but
no. Jordan
Love's a good quarterback. Starter sit Josh Jacobs.
Easy better in the fantasy playoffs. I'm sorry?
Josh Jacobs, easy start?
I think so.
Yeah, number 2 running back.
Bears give up 4.9.
I don't like that Matt LaFleur, when asked about Marshawn Lloyd returning, said, having 4 running backs is never a bad thing.
Yeah, liar. It is. Jaden Reed is, let's see, Jaden Reed or Tank Dell?
I read 1 or 2 spots ahead, but it's close.
I agree. It's close. They're both in that flex range. I have Dobbs over Reed by a spot.
I mean, he's tough, right? Because you don't want to sit the upside. You have Dobbs over Reed.
Dobbs, Reed, then two other receivers with just two other receivers, and then Tank Dell.
Okay. Dobbs, let's see. Last 2 games were bad, but that was, again, Jordan Love. That one was okay.
They're all bad.
For Dobbs?
They were all bad because Love was bad.
No, I mean, the Packers were bad.
Yeah,
So-
the last 2 games have been bad.
These are the 2 wide receivers that play the most for Green Bay. Jaden Reed, you said it, like definitely a big play guy, and his best games come when he makes big plays. I think Dobbs is safer. I think that he's one that has the better chance to get the most volume. And Chicago can take away big plays through the air. I think that just Dobbs is just the safe path for Love and for everybody in that offense, really.
Until we get back to what we were seeing before the groin injury for Love, they're all risky until we see it.
That's fair.
So, I mean, look, the last 2 games, granted how they played out, Qestion Watson had 13 targets.
Yeah.
So, could he start to get going a little bit as if Love gets healthy? And so, you never know how that factors into things. Tucker Kraft was scoring a lot of touchdowns. I think it was a touchdown in 5 of last 7 games with Love. 6 touchdowns over the span or something like that.
5 touchdowns in his last 6 games for Tucker Kraft.
Right. One of those was a 2-touchdown game. There's still potential clearly for him, but you're looking at it just feels a little unsettling. And this is not an easy matchup.
No.
Even with all the injuries to Chicago, they still managed to keep production low for opposing passing games.
I assume that Dobbs and Reed are your favorite receivers in this game, though. You're not going with DJ Moore.
Correct.
It basically for the Bears, it's just Swift, right?
As a starter, yes.
Yeah.
I think the thing you want to see is the coordinator change. You want to see how things look. With Thomas Brown, without Shane Waldron, is there things schematically that it look different? How's the protection? Going to go for Caleb Williams. That's obviously the biggest thing at this point. More running back touches, you would assume. Maybe Roshan benefits also. Who knows? It could be a situation where they give him some more touches to maybe use Swift a little bit more in the passing game, because he went from 6 catches 2 games ago to 1 last week. So who knows how things look for the Bears. I think just in terms of the receivers, you want to sit them. If you have to make a tough call on dropping the non-DJ Moore receivers, I get it. So if you went to your waiver wire in a 10-team league and Keenan Allen was the guy to drop, sure. Roma Dunze was the guy to drop, sure. But you want to see if what this looks like. It could just be different and things work better. I'm moderately hopeful.
So here are reasons to be hopeful. Number one, the offensive line appears to be getting healthier. They've got some tackles who haven't been playing that are practicing. So with any luck, they will start to practice. And we know that Green Bay's pass rush kind of changed a little bit with Preston Smith leaving the team. We'll see if Lucas Van Ness can kind of take over for him there. I think the easiest thing that the Bears could do is just get the ball out of Caleb's hands faster. And that's why I've got Cole Kmet as a top 12 tight end this week in PPR. Just makes sense to get him as the short area target, dump off guy, quick read guy, things where he can go and make a play after the catch. Obviously, he can be used in the red zone too, but I think he's the one that gets a little bit more shoveled onto his plate in the wake of the OC change.
Interesting. That's quite a gamble. Do you have him ahead of Tucker Kraft?
No, but he is 11th for me. I've got him ahead of Taysom. This is PPR. Taysom Hill, Hunter Henry. I had him ahead of both tight ends yesterday. Freiermuth, Gesicki's out of there now because it looks like T. Higgins is coming back. But like if you're streaming a tight end and Cole Kmet's on your waiver wire, I'd rather just go with Kmet.
Okay. Over Dawson Knox.
No, that's one guy. That's the better streamer, obviously.
Okay.
And that's assuming that Dalton Kincaid is out.
All right. So then I'll just maybe Tucker Kraft is one that because you guys have him as a low end starter, about 10th. And how does Kraft compare to Dawson Knox?
I like him.
I would start Kraft. The hope that's where Jordan Love continues to go for red zone opportunities.
Right.
Okay.
And the Bears have struggled with tight ends. They've done well against receivers, not necessarily tight ends.
Packers DST, Bears DST. Do you like any of that? Either of them?
Packers DST a lot.
How in the world can you not like the Packers DST?
Okay. DSTs kind of stink this year, don't they? What do you think? I feel like just overall.
Meaning like there's just too many streaming?
No, I
I had a lot of Chargers DST in
Yeah.
a bulk of my 30 leagues, and having to pivot off of that has not been fun. To try and find replacement options. I think we've gotten some pockets of some pretty good DSTs. I mean, the Vikings early in the season, Eagles recently. Chargers for a good
But I
stretch.
feel like that's every year.
Good year for the offense, though, I think.
Now it's
bad.
I think we're going to see the Texans, their schedule, if you were able to pick them up.
All right. Oh, that reminds me. Not beyond the box score. Beat the waiver wire. We're doing Beat the Waiver Wire on FFT Express this afternoon. This is one that you need to pay attention to. It's tough because we have so many buys coming up, but you should get ahead of the game. You really need to start planning ahead for Week 12 now before your opponent does, and we'll help you out on Beat the Waiver Wire. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Jacksonville and Detroit. Can Mac Jones, who Jamie picked up in our Baked Burger Dynasty League for $11, can he get it going at the Lions? We'll tell you after this.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Starts and sits for the Jaguars and the Lions. If Tank
You should
Dell...
clarify, that's a super flex league.
Yeah, I said... Did I say that? I did say that, yeah. I thought so. It's super flex league. If Tank Bigsby is out, not Tank Dell. If Tank Bigsby is out, who's the best start for the Jaguars, like relative to his position?
The best start would be the bus to get back to the airport as quickly as possible.
Oh man, you have an opportunity for ETN. You have Evan Ingram, who's not terrible. Who's the best? Who's the guy you'd be most excited about? And Brian Thomas Jr. too.
Yeah,
excited about? I mean, Thomas would be the one to be excited about, but confidence in none of them.
You're right.
This is the game we find out if he's getting fired. Doug Peterson's getting fired. If they quit early in the game, he's done. Bye week next week, like there's no reason to keep him.
Sure.
Quarterback and coach are apparently feuding. It's not good right now.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about ETN though, compared to like Najee Harris or Rico Dowdle? If Tank Bigsby is out,
he's ahead of those guys, but again, it's like once you get to about like RB 22, 23, like it's a guessing game after that. So ETN, Dowdle, Najee, I had the Washington guys right there too. It's just not a lot of slam dunk. You're starting these guys with any semblance of confidence. So yes, ETN does benefit if there is no Bigsby, but you're talking about one of the best run defenses in football, and Mac Jones at quarterback. They're huge underdogs. They're on the road. Their bye week is next week. It's just all a disaster. It's an absolute disaster.
All right, so we're gonna get a lot of Brian Thomas Jr. questions that I am very confident in. I asked you guys Jamison Williams or Brian Thomas Jr. Dave said Brian Thomas Jr. Jamie said Jamison Williams. Did I ask you guys about Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs versus
both Packers guys over Thomas? I would take both Chargers guys over Thomas. Like I'm out on him this week.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. 5 straight games with 6 or fewer targets. And then Evan Ingram is Tucker Kraft or Evan Ingram?
Kraft.
Lions have been awesome against tight ends.
They have held Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft, and Trey McBride to 7.4 or fewer PPR fantasy points.
Can you name the tight end who scored a touchdown against them?
I can look in my notes.
It AJ Barner?
AJ Barner, yeah.
Barner. Only tight end to score a touchdown against them.
Well, I mean, it's AJ Barner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it goes for that guy.
We'll forgive them for that.
2 tight ends that I'm hoping for good games from, Dawson Knox and Cole Kmet. I'm still going to start Evan Ingram over them as of now, but we're almost at the point where with Evan Ingram where it's like, oh, what the heck? I'm only going to get like 10 PPR points from him anyway. So I might as well go and roll the dice with one of these other tight ends, but it is still 10 PPR points. And sometimes that's enough to say, all right, I'll just take the points and not worry about these question marks at tight end.
Questions from the chat. Brian Thomas Jr. or Marquez Valdez-Scantling?
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but that's where
Brian
Thomas is heading.
You can make the case for MVS, but I agree. Brian Thomas Jr.
Evan Ingram or Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, same. Not there yet. Ingram's still better.
Ingram's
worst game was basically last week, in terms of him healthy. and it's better than any game Dalton Schultz has had all season. 10 PPR points. Schultz has not gotten to 10 yet this year.
Here's one I don't understand. AEW roster versus the Jags.
It's a wrestling reference.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's more than that. The guy that owns AEW is Shad Khan's son, Tony.
Oh, okay. Ingram or Pitts?
Oh, he's definitely focused on wrestling right now. Pitts.
I agree, Pitts.
And all right, moving on to Detroit here. So how do we feel about Jared Goff? It's a great matchup, but you got to figure he's probably going to throw 12 passes in this game. But maybe
I think
22.
You look at it this way. Do they get conservative after the 5 interception game, or do they let him get, back on track after the 5 interception game? And that's really it's a guessing game. There's really no way to tell, because you said it. They've had games where he's thrown the ball under 20 times, and he's been efficient. He's gotten touchdowns. He's been, a solid quarterback, but it hasn't really been the high-end fantasy production that we know he's capable of in a matchup like this. So I think he's worth starting. I think he's worth trusting. I'll give you an example. I have Bo Nix ranked ahead of Jared Goff, and I would start him in every situation possible except the one league where I have both on the same team, and I'm sending him. It's my guillotine league, because I think Goff is a little bit safer, and I just want to get through the week. I don't need to win anything. I just want to make sure I'm getting guaranteed points. And so there's too much of a high-low variance in Nix by comparison. I think Jared Goff is going to get you steady 20 to 22 points. If he gets you, a 3-touchdown game, it could be huge. But I like the setup for Nix better, for example, just in terms of having a higher ceiling.
Okay. But the funny thing is about Goff is that he's got 4 games with fewer than 14 fantasy points. He's got 2 games with 31 or more fantasy points, and he never throws. So there's been some variance there. The Jaguars allow the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's probably when I put Goff in my lineup, I'm just kind of expecting like 21 fantasy points.
Yep.
It just hasn't really played out that way, but
his floor is lower than that, but the ceiling is significantly higher than that. And this is just such a good matchup that you could just see him having like that hyper efficient day where he's 17 of 18 for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you just look at it and you go, how can somebody do that? But yeah, he's been doing that this year.
Well, his 2 games where he scored 31 or more points, he threw 18 passes and 25 passes. But
it feels like that is in the cards. This could happen this week for him.
In one of them, he caught a touchdown. Right. Goff, Cousins, or Darnold?
Goff.
I've got Goff the highest, I think.
I got some more questions about the Jaguars, so we'll go to the Lions in a second. But here's Brian Thomas Jr. or Najee Harris. Brian Thomas Jr. or Najee Harris. Brian Thomas Jr. or Quentin Johnston.
I would say
Johnston.
I would say Thomas in both.
Okay, wow. And Etienne or Estime?
Etienne.
I'll take Estime.
Would you start? We know James Cook has this horrible matchup against the Chiefs. Would you start James Cook or David Montgomery, who can't seem to get more than 12 carries these days?
Montgomery.
I've got Montgomery ranked higher than Cook, but it's close.
Okay, start Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams. So, Dave, I think you gave me an interesting stat about Jamison Williams with and without Sam Laporta. The target per route run rate with and without Laporta on the field is ridiculous. It's like much
it's like
higher.
Double.
Yeah, but the weird, it goes from 15.4% for Jamison Williams target per route run rate with Laporta on the field, 28.1% with him off the field. The 28.1% target per route run rate is great. But the weird thing is, like, I look at the game log and I don't see that correlation really. Like, I see that stat, but it's not like Laporta gets that many targets. There's games where Laporta gets almost nothing and it doesn't really affect Jamison Williams. I don't know, but
if there's one thing you want to look for a game log for Jamison Williams, go look at his home and road.
Yeah, big difference.
All of his best games coming home.
So how much do we like him? Did he crack the top 30 this week?
No, but again, when you're like, there's that group of receivers. It's the 2 Packers guys. It's Tank Dell. It's Josh Downs has fallen into this group. It's Jalen Waddle. I like Williams better, but Waddle, Brian Thomas Jr., DJ Moore. There's a group of about 15 receivers that you can say, okay, can be 25, maybe good day top 20, but not anything you could say with this is why this is going to happen. So for Williams, he's been great at home. He's played 3 home games so far. They've been all fantastic. One was the 2-catch 80-yard game that he had where he broke the 60-yard reception. I forget who it was against. It was a crossing route over the middle. He just took it and ran up the sideline. It was a touchdown.
Rams.
Sounds right. So you have his performance at home. You have terrible matchup. Jaguars give a lot of big plays,
Yes,
and you have potentially no Sam Laporta. So 3 things working in his favor, but they just have not seen the high volume of targets for him recently. And that's the hope, is that, again, this discussion we had yesterday, hope versus certainty. The hope being that he gets more chances without Laporta on the field in a great matchup. That's what you want to bank on here. So he's a great DFS play. He's a great, swing for the fence if you need your team to win this week type of play, because that's really what he is out every week. But when he's at home, it's even better. And so I like him this week. I just don't have him ranked in the top 30. He's like 33 or 34.
If you're going up against Saquon Barkley, and Barkley just hung a huge number on you, and you had Terry McLaurin, change your flex to Jameson Williams. Jamie hit on it. It's the high upside, boom bust, bye week type of wide receiver 3. That's exactly what he is, and you're hoping that he just catches a big catch for a touchdown.
All right, Dave, give me your thoughts real quick on the Lions tight ends.
Brock Wright is a streamer if there's no Sam Laporta, but I wouldn't be very excited to start him.
And if Laporta plays?
I'd be more inclined to start Laporta, but he's almost in the same boat as Jameson Williams. You've got to hope that he makes a big play or two.
If he plays, would you start Evan Ingram or Sam Laporta?
I could be talked into Laporta because I think his upside is higher than Ingram's.
It's one of the best matchups you could find. Jackson's been so bad against tight ends. It sucks that he's hurt this week.
Yeah, well, unless you have Jameson Williams, it might help him. All right, Cleveland's at New Orleans. Stat of the game. So, you see the Saints. The Saints, they give up the 5th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, but they are absolutely terrible in terms of yards. They give up the 4th most passing yards per game, but they give up the 3rd lowest touchdown rate per game, and they have the 4th most interceptions in the NFL. So you can throw on them, but it's been hard to score on them. I don't know if I buy it. It seems maybe a little fluky, but I also think that's a stat that says, all right, maybe Jameis won't have a great game. Maybe he throws some picks, but it could be another good game for the wide receivers because they give up a ton of passing yards. How are you guys looking at this game? We had talked about, Jameis Winston after the bye, he's got these tough matchups. I think he has Baltimore and Pittsburgh after this, but this isn't one of them, right?
It is statistically, but I don't buy it. I think this is one of those games where Jameis is going to have an opportunity to play well. It's a matter of the touchdowns, like you said. So what do they do when they get inside the 10? Is this where Nick Chubb comes into play? How much do they lean on Nick Chubb to get him a get-right game, as we talked about earlier? But yes, Doug, this is a revenge game for Jameis Winston. He spent 4 years as a backup in New Orleans, for the most part at least. And so this is his opportunity, I think, to, have one of those, one of those days, so similar to Jameson Williams, if you're stuck, you need a big, time performance. Would not be surprising if Jameis is that type of guy, and he's going to be in a lot of my DFS lineups for this week because I think he can go nuts. The way that he's been throwing the ball, great game against Baltimore, subpar game. I forget the second matchup that he had, but it was, a lot of pass attempts, and a lot of these guys are going to have chances to make plays.
The subpar game was against the Chargers, right?
Yep.
And the Chargers defense, I think we need to start giving them credit. Hopefully, not so much this week when they take on Cincinnati.
Well, I mean, Jameis and Joe Burrow are 2 different animals.
That's definitely true. Here, I'll go on the other side of this with Jameis. I don't like that he was in New Orleans for 4 years, and that despite Dennis Allen getting fired, there's still a lot of coaches on that team that know Jameis. They know what his strengths and weaknesses are. He was around that team for 4 years. I don't think that he's changed very much over the course of his career. And that Saints defense did get a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit more last week against Atlanta, and it worked out for them to a degree. Obviously, Kirk Cousins didn't score any touchdowns, but he still threw the ball well when he wasn't under duress. My guess is that they are going to try and up the blitz rate and get more pressure on Jameis Winston in obvious passing situations. So that could lead to some turnovers too. But I just completely buy into the matchup. I think the Browns will buy into the matchup on the ground, and I think they'll try and get Chubb going, and that might limit just the type of upside that Winston could have as far as passing volume goes. Maybe the Saints have a lead in the second half, and then Jameis has to throw. That could go either way. We know how it is with Jameis. So as a bye week quarterback, sure, he's got some upside, but he's not somebody that I would rank like top 12 or anything close to that.
Winston or Levis is a question in the chat.
Winston.
Yeah, I mean, I think Winston's the way to go there. I've got him 18.
All right, so I'm going to give you a name. I want one sentence on how you feel about this player, okay? Nick Chubb.
A great number 2 running back in week 11.
Hopeful that after several weeks plus a bye, he's ready to go back to his old self in arguably the best matchup you could have.
Cedric Tillman.
A great number 2 wide receiver in week 11.
Volume dependent wide receiver with a good chance to score and the best Browns receiver.
Jerry Jeudy.
A great number 3 wide receiver in week 11.
You need 12 PPR points. Start Jerry Jeudy.
Elijah Moore.
A risky number 3 wide receiver in week 11.
David Njoku.
A great tight end to start in week 11.
Top 5 fantasy tight end.
All right, I'm going to look at some chat questions to put these guys in context. Winston or Drake May?
May, but it's close.
Winston, but it's close.
I will say this. If you're trying to plan ahead, you'd rather have Drake May than Jameis Winston.
Agreed. Yes.
Winston or Russell Wilson?
Rust.
Tillman or Jawan Jennings?
Double J.
Jennings.
Tillman or Jacoby Myers?
Myers.
Jacoby Myers.
Rico Dowdle or Nick Chubb?
Chubb.
I will go with Chubb.
Yeah, compound sentence. That was a big time compound sentence.
Thank
you. Do I have a Tillman, Mooney, or Downs?
Mooney if he's active, Tillman otherwise.
Tillman over both guys.
Okay. Now listen, earlier we said we like Jennings and Myers better than Tillman. That's because we like Jennings and Myers, not because we don't like Tillman.
Correct.
Tillman or Jaden Reed?
Tillman.
Said.
Jerry Jeudy or Tank Dell?
Dell. That's close.
I have Tank higher.
Jerry Jeudy or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Judy.
I have BTJ higher.
All right. Nick Chubb. I'll do a few more Nick Chubbs. Nick Chubb or Audric Estime?
Chubb.
Nick Chubb or Drake London? Say half PPR.
Chubb.
I kind of like Chubb better.
Okay. All right. Let's go over to the Saints. Start Kamara. Anyone else? Taysom?
Low end starting tight end.
Knox or Taysom?
Knox. If Kincaid's out.
Correct.
Okay. Ingram or Taysom?
Ingram still.
I'll take Taysom in non-PPR.
I agree. Yeah, let's go.
If you heard our little conversation about Jameson Williams and you thought to yourself, oh man, I'd love to have a player like that on my roster, you could always pivot to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. For what it's worth, one game, he looked pretty good.
He had 3 targets.
No, but on top of that, just watching him play, I thought he looked pretty good. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not telling I don't even know if I have him ranked as a top 50 receiver, but I'm just saying that's the same type of receiver as Jameson Williams. And in offense, part 1, Derek Carr has been throwing deep a lot more lately, or all season, I should say. Part 2, the offensive line is stronger. It's not a great matchup, and I'm not stumping for MVS other than to say he's one of those one play boom bust receivers.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with this Browns defense going forward because they've been bad. They are 26. No, they give up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers, the 5th most completions of 20 or more yards, the 3rd most completions of 20 or more air yards. They've been actually a great matchup. Do they get things figured out in their bye? And we actually like their DST quite a bit. They are top 8 for everybody. And 33% rostered as of yesterday, the Cleveland Browns. All right, Seattle's at San Francisco. Stat of the game. Seattle has allowed 16 or more PPR fantasy points to 10 wide receivers in their last 6 games. So they've been horrible against wide receivers. Is that because of injuries? Are they healthier now? I don't know. I know they were pretty beat up in the secondary. They're coming off.
They were for a while, but Reek Woolen's been back. I don't think Witherspoon ever left, so I don't know if we can pin it on injuries.
Okay.
I think you can pin it on a pass rush that hasn't been as good as it was earlier in the year.
So what does that mean for Debo and Jennings and even Pearsall?
Start, stash.
You could start Pearsall if you had to. I would have low expectations. I'd rather start Jameson Williams as an example, but the volume plus the after catch ability for both Debo and Jennings, and really I'm kind of speaking to Jennings here more than Debo, are two factors that I just absolutely love for this game.
Stat of the game to keep an eye on. This isn't going to influence anyone's decisions, but Ken Walker is averaging 3.2 yards per carry in his last 5 games. He had 6 carries of 12 or more yards in his first 2 games and has only 1 since then. So he's really struggling. He's got, once again, Ken Walker, one of these guys, has a ton of carries for 0 or negative yards. He's always among the leaders there. But he's not making up for it with the explosive plays. And I mentioned the Ramondre thing, how bad Ramondre has been since coming back from a foot injury. It was an oblique injury for Ken Walker, but since he's come back, he really hasn't been very good other than that Detroit game. Anyway, I know you're going to start Ken Walker, but I just wanted to bring that up. All right, so we started with the Niners. We can just go through them. You guys love Brock Purdy. He's a top 5 quarterback. The Seahawks have just been a really good matchup. You love McCaffrey. Debo is a must start. And Jennings is close to that, I guess. I probably asked this 1,000 times yesterday, but Jennings or Drake London?
Jennings.
Agreed.
Okay, and then Kittle, if he plays, you're obviously going to play him. Although I did think it was interesting that he had only 4 targets in the first game with Christian McCaffrey back. Of course, he scored a touchdown. He does that every week. And
on a busted play, no less.
You know what? A busted play?
That was a busted play he scored on.
All right, but it was a great play.
It was a great play, but the play was designed to go to McCaffrey.
A busted play. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it wasn't busted coverage. It was a busted.
No.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I'm going to look up a Kittle stat that I mentioned on Monday that I think you're going to be pretty wowed by. But while I do that, Dave, take me through how you feel about the Seattle Seahawks against this Niners team.
I think DK Metcalf he's too good to sit. He's been practicing in full all week with the knee injury. He should be good to go. I don't feel great about JSN or Tyler Lockett. You're going to need to give me a minute when you come back to look up the stats so I make sure I get it right on Jackson Smith and Jigba. But his track record playing with DK Metcalf is not good. He might be good enough to be a flex, and you could use him as a number 3 receiver in full PPR, but not one that's got crazy high upside. And I know they're talking about getting him more involved. I'd love to see it. I don't want to bank on it quite yet. Lockett is also in that boom bust flex range. I believe the last time these two teams met, it was Lockett who had the best game, and DK dominated targets in that game. But to me, it's Metcalf, an easy number 1 fantasy wide receiver. You hope for the best with him. And it's an added bonus that Charvarius Ward, dealing with some personal tragedy, not playing in this game again this week. So it does make the matchup a little bit easier for Seattle. And you know that they'll throw a lot.
Dan in our chat, by the way, here's your stats on JSN with Metcalf. 3 games with 6.9 or fewer fantasy points. 3 games with 10.3 to 13.1 PPR fantasy points. I guess you take that. And 1 huge game, 23.7 fantasy points at New England.
I think that's the only game in his career where he's had over 15 PPR points with DK on the field.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he's never posted 15 plus in PPR in consecutive games.
So Jackson Smith and Jigba or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Jason.
I think I have Thomas higher.
How about Brian?
No, I don't. I have JSN 1 spot ahead of Thomas. I'm sorry.
Brian Thomas Jr. or Nick Chubb? I'm sorry, JSN or Nick Chubb?
Chubb.
I would, yeah, I kind of feel like Chubb is the better play.
Here's a
full PPR. It's tougher.
Question from the chat. Start 2, Jennings, Debo, Sutton.
I would sit Jennings here.
I would too.
And here's Dave, we have to correct Dan G here. He says, we need to lower expectations for fantasy like the old SNL skit.
Was that SNL or Mad TV?
It's Mad TV. And for Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dave, we have lowered expectations. It needs work. Starter said Geno Smith, Jamie.
I thought that sounded great.
Heath has him as a start. Low end start.
He doesn't have a great history against San Francisco at all. So
that's my big fear.
I would try and send him if you can. Look, he's going to throw a lot. He's averaging 38 pass attempts a game. Is that going to matter? Hope so. Last time we saw him prior to the bye week, it was 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So could get that type of performance for him. He's in that low end starting range mix, just not a slam dunk starter.
How many times has he found 21 plus fantasy points against the 49ers in his past 5 games?
None.
One.
None.
All right. And Gino is leading the NFL in passing yards, 200 per game, 284.4 passing yards. That's kind of wild. Doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns, though. Doesn't throw in the red zone or the green zone much. All right. So that's Jameis Winston or Geno Smith?
Geno.
I'll take Jameis.
Jennings or Higgins from the chat?
Oh, I haven't thought about that with T, where he would go.
I think he'd go ahead of Juwan.
I would put him behind Juwan Jennings, but it's close.
Okay. Oh, how about this? Matt Walter says Dave crushed it. The lowered expectation song. Adam, a little pitchy.
and we know that Matt Walters is an absolute audiophile, just a maestro when it comes to singing and music.
Yeah, I agree. All right. 49ers DST, you can start. And I'm finished with this game. Rams are at New England. I already told you about the Rams not making big plays. They have one play of more than 30 yards since the return of their 2 receivers, and it was the Demarcus Robinson touchdown catch. But they have the second most passing yards in those last 3 games. They're just not scoring. Does this sound familiar? Is this not Matthew Stafford each of the previous 2 seasons? He can't throw touchdowns.
Well, not at the end of last year, which is what we were hoping for.
Yeah, he got going finally. But second most passing yards in the last 3 games, but the 3rd lowest touchdown rate. I also want to point out the Rams defense has allowed 20 or fewer points in 4 straight games since their bye. That was the Raiders, which is whatever, but then Minnesota at Seattle and Miami. So kudos to them. I thought this was kind of an easy matchup earlier in the year. It might not be anymore. Jamie, take us through the Rams, how you view them.
Stafford is in that Geno Smith, Jameis Winston, Drake May, range of low-end starter at best. You just have to be a little concerned about the touchdowns. And so I think just this is not the best setup of, going on the road in West Coast, East Coast. This is when you typically see these guys start to struggle a little bit.
Especially after playing on Monday.
But if you need Stafford, then it's not awful. Kyron's a must start, and the 2 receivers are must starts. It's just one of those things where if Stafford gets 2 touchdowns, he should be okay. Will he get to 2 touchdowns?
Kyron, yes. Kyron's struggling. Like I said, 2 straight games with a long of 9 yards, but how can you take him out of your lineup? It gets so much work. And you like Puka better than Kupp?
In PPR, I think Kupp's touchdown potential is a little bit higher.
There, man, some concerning metrics for Cooper Kupp. I talked about it last week, but it doesn't really matter because he still gets open. They've designed such great routes, and he's open and like he ran some great routes. He just is doing nothing after the catch. It seems he might be slowing down, but
no, he has slowed down. There's nothing. Yeah. He might be.
All right. I'll say that
31-year-old receiver that's had ankle and foot issues.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. He's not the same. He's not the same guy. I don't think, but it doesn't.
He's
really
still good enough to start. He's still got top 10.
Absolutely. And he's got a career high target per route run rate right now, 31% almost. All right. Any interest in Davis Allen as a sleeper? Did you mention him?
I think when you start to talk about it, like I like Dave's optimism about Cole Kmet. I really have no faith until I start to see it from him. So it's, the coordinator change hopefully will change some things. But I think just looking at it, like the guys that we talked about this week, mostly for PPR, you could get 5 catches from Davis Allen. And it wouldn't surprise me based on what we saw last week. Sean McVay, I didn't read the story, but Sean McVay addressed, why Colby Parkinson didn't play very much. So I want to go back and read that and see what the issue was. Just something to keep in mind. But like Will Dissly's in a better spot. Dawson Knox in a better spot. Freiermuth is a touchdown or bust type of tight end if you want to play that card, based on the matchup against Baltimore. So I think in a desperate situation, Davis Allen, but nothing with any semblance of confidence.
All right. Drake May is around 18th to 20 or so. Remember a couple weeks ago with that Seahawks-Rams game I talked about, if only teams would just throw on the Rams, they could be successful, and it almost never happens. Well, maybe this could happen because it depends how competitive you think the game is going to be. But Drake May is usually like, let's see, 33, 37, 41, and 25 pass attempts. 25 pass attempts was in a win, a 19-6 win or whatever it was last week against the Bears. But when they lose, it's 33 or more pass attempts, including a 37 pass attempt game and a 41 pass attempt game. That's kind of interesting to me, Dave. And what if he throws 35 or more times against this defense that's bad on a per attempt basis?
You can kind of see him having that opportunity. I struggle with his receivers being able to make big plays for him repeatedly. And so the idea that he's going to throw a lot, yeah, I think that's going to happen. And I even think he'll run a bunch too. I do worry about like, does he have 2 touchdowns? Does he have 3? I don't think he's got the upside for 3. Maybe he can get to 2. If the Patriots are going to be competitive in this game, it's going to be a low scoring game. It's going to be kind of a game that might mirror what we saw from the Rams last week.
All right. So we talked about, like, he's in the Jameis Winston. How far away is Drake May from Matthew Stafford in your rankings?
Not far.
Is 6 spots far?
Yeah, that's kind of far.
He's kind of far.
Okay. So you guys want to avoid him. He's a low end backup. He's a backup.
But we will talk about him in, like, an hour or so live on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast,
yes,
go listen to FFT Express.
All right. What do you think about Ramondre this week, guys?
Low end number 2 running back.
Yep.
You love the work. He played every third down snap last week, I believe. He got 20 carries, but he is just struggling, and the Rams' run defense has been better. If we have any Ramondre questions, please fire away in the chat. And I don't think we're going to be starting Kayshon Boutte or Demario Douglas with any confidence. So Hunter Henry's starter sit Hunter Henry, Dave Richard.
I would reluctantly start him. I don't like what I saw last week, and maybe I need to go back over that film a little bit more closely to understand why the Patriots went with 2 tight ends. It felt like they went with 2 tight ends a little bit more than normal. Maybe I'm off on that. I don't know, but we saw Austin Hooper getting more work than Hunter Henry. Henry did have a shot at a touchdown, target in the end zone, just didn't catch it. I'm hoping for a bit of a bounce back against the Rams, but this is yet another reason to kind of poo-poo Drake May. You can't look at these guys and say, okay, here's who's going to help Drake May get huge numbers. Here's going to be the reason why this offense takes off and puts up 24 points. And I can't say anymore that Hunter Henry is guaranteed volume.
I would look at it this way. He's played 5 games now with Drake May. 4 of them have been completed. In 3 of the 4 that have been completed, they've been either competitive or chasing points. The one time where they were significantly ahead of their opponent, Hunter Henry stunk. So if you think they're going to blow out the Rams, good luck to you. Then you probably want to avoid Hunter Henry. If you think they're going to be competitive or chasing points against a defense like this that stinks against tight ends, you should be starting Hunter Henry.
That's a pretty interesting point there, right? Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. It's like, I think what concerns me is the Hooper thing. It's like what happened to Gesicki last week. They will sometimes throw to another.
But it's happened once since May has taken over.
As far as like good numbers for Hooper, it's happened once, but he's had 4 targets in 3 of the past 4 games.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, they don't have a amazing receiving core, so they're going to use different things and different players to help them in certain situations. And so, yes, could Austin Hooper have, his 4 targets be more impactful than Hunter Henry's 6 or 8? Sure. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Austin Hooper's a good player, but I can't imagine, if you just look at how you expect this game to go, that Hunter Henry's not a significant part of it. He may stink, but the track record with Drake May has been pretty solid.
Yeah. All right. Hunter Henry or Dawson from the chat. Hunter Henry or Dawson Knox?
Henry.
I'll take Knox if there's no Kincaid.
Swift or Stevenson?
Swift.
Agreed.
And Sutton or Stevenson?
Sutton.
That's
agreed.
I can't say that's easy, but Sutton. Ramondre or Drake London?
London and PPR.
Yeah, probably.
Pop Douglas or Josh Downs?
Downs.
Agreed.
All right. We're going to take one last break. We have 1 game left. We'll talk about Houston and Dallas when we come back. All right. Welcome back. Houston is at Dallas, our last game. And CJ Stroud, starter sit. I told you how horrible the Cowboys' pass defense has been their last 4 games. I will say that 3 of those games were without Micah Parsons. 1 game was with Parsons playing 2/3 of the snaps. But they have been the worst pass defense in football for the last 4 games and really not close. Starter sit CJ Stroud. Jamie.
I would prefer to sit him, but he is in that Stafford group, Geno Smith, Drake May, Jameis Winston, you know, all these guys that are basically like, for me, it's like 13, QB 14 to 20. Like there's just so many guys I think it could be right around 18 to 20 fantasy points. So the plus is Nico Collins is expected to return. The negative is he's had some stinkers with Nico Collins even still on the field. So would not be surprising if they throw to score, run to win, and he only has, you know, 1 touchdown early in the game and then slot Joe Mixon. I just don't have a lot of faith in CJ Stroud right now.
I don't have a lot of faith in the Cowboys keeping this game competitive. Like their offense is just not, it's obviously not that good without Dak Prescott there. So how much passing will Stroud really need to do? That hammers his upside quite a bit. I have him ranked 16th, and I think I might have him too high.
Jameis Winston or Stroud?
Stroud.
I have Stroud 2 spots ahead of Winston right now. I'm open to changing that.
Geno Smith or Stroud?
Stroud.
Yeah, I don't want to trust Geno.
All right, start Joe Mixon. Start Nico Collins if he plays. Tank Dell is a number 3 wide receiver. We've talked about him quite a bit so far. Sit Dalton Schultz. Sit Cooper Rush, although I did get a Cooper Rush or who was it? Gardner Minshew, Superflex.
Minshew.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right, so then Rico Dowdle.
Both of those quarterbacks have a chance to get benched during their games.
Rico Dowdle and CeeDee Lamb. Who do you like better?
Lamb.
Lamb.
How much do you like CeeDee Lamb this week?
Number 2 receiver, but, you know, closer to 20 than he is to 12.
Correct.
Texans are 24th against wide receivers. Cooper Rush, as I mentioned earlier in the week, had one of the worst games in football history. He threw 23 passes for 45 yards. That is unbelievable. Now, there have been like games where guys have thrown 5 interceptions or whatever or more. Who was the guy for the Bills? Or was it the Chargers? Came in and threw like 6 interceptions.
Was it Peterman?
Yeah.
For the Buffalo?
That was worse. But 23. This was some type of record or near record for like most pass attempts or fewer than 50 yards for Cooper Rush. So he'll be better. Lamb or Jennings. I think I asked you that earlier. Sorry, Lamb or Jennings.
Yeah, I've got Lamb 1 spot ahead of Jennings.
I'll take Jennings.
Lamb or Mooney.
Lamb right now.
Mooney if he plays.
Lamb or Ramondre Stevenson.
Lamb.
His fleece is as white as snow.
Okay.
You know, again, just to put it in perspective, Philadelphia's defense is not Houston's defense. You know, so what we saw last week was just an absolute, you know, poop storm for the Cowboys of tough defense. Lamb playing through the shoulder injury. Not that he's healthier now, but he should be. His first start, Rush's first start, it was just a disaster. You know, so I think they're going to actually be competitive in this game because I don't think Houston's offense has been playing that great.
And it's also a night game, so we don't have to worry about the sun. So that's a huge factor here. Lamb or Jacoby Myers from the chat?
Jacoby.
Myers.
Rico Dowdle or Jalen Warren?
Dowdle, unless Najee's out, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're good here. All right, we're good. And sit Jake Ferguson. You guys are very low on Jake Ferguson. Houston allows the fewest fantasy points to tight ends. Start the Texans DST. And thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll talk to you with the mailbag later today. Also, beat the waiver wire. It's definitely one that you want to check out on Fantasy Football Today Express. And obviously, we'll have a full day of fun for you on Sunday. For Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg, I am Adam Azer. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon on FFT.